Welcome to Wisdom to Freedom. In this episode, we explore the concept of naive realism, its influence on our perception of the world, and how it can limit our understanding of truth. Join us as we delve into the illusions that naive realism presents and discover ways to transcend its limitations. Understanding naive realism. Naive realism is a common way of perceiving the world, rooted in the belief that our senses provide us with direct and accurate access to reality. It suggests that what we see, hear, and touch is an objective representation of the external world. This perspective aligns with our everyday experiences and seems intuitive. Naive realism, also known as direct realism or common-sense realism, is a philosophical position that proposes that our perceptions of the world directly represent reality as it is. According to naive realism, objects exist independently of our perception and our senses provide us with accurate and unmediated access to the external world. The prevalence of naive realism as a common way to perceive the world can be attributed to several factors. Everyday experience. Naive realism aligns with our everyday experiences. When we interact with the world, it seems as though we directly perceive objects and events. For example, when we see a tree, it appears to be an immediate and unmediated perception of the actual tree itself. This alignment with our direct experiences makes naive realism intuitively appealing. Evolutionary adaptation. Our perceptual systems have evolved to provide us with a functional and efficient way to navigate the world. Naive realism can be seen as a useful adaptation for survival. If our senses were completely unreliable or if there was a significant gap between our perceptions and reality, it would hinder our ability to interact effectively with our environment. Naive realism, therefore, may have provided an evolutionary advantage by promoting accurate and immediate perceptual judgments. Cultural and linguistic influence. Naive realism is deeply embedded in our cultural and linguistic frameworks. In many languages, there is a direct correspondence between words and the objects they represent. This linguistic structure reinforces the idea that our perceptions directly correspond to reality. Additionally, cultural narratives and everyday language often reinforce the notion that we perceive the world as it is, further solidifying naive realism as a common-sense understanding. Presumed accuracy of perception. Naive realism assumes that our perceptual experiences are accurate and veridical. We tend to trust our senses and believe that they provide us with reliable information about the external world. This assumption of accuracy leads to a default acceptance of naive realism unless challenged by alternative philosophical perspectives or scientific findings. However, it is important to note that naive realism has been subject to philosophical critique and scientific investigation. Philosophers and scientists have raised questions about the reliability of our senses, the nature of perception, and the possibility of perceptual illusions. These investigations have led to alternative theories of perception, such as representationalism and indirect realism, which posit that our perceptions are mediated by mental representations or that we only have access to a subjective representation of reality. In summary, naive realism became a common way to perceive the world due to its alignment with everyday experiences, its potential evolutionary advantages, cultural and linguistic influences, and the presumed accuracy of perception. However, it is worth noting that alternative perspectives have emerged through philosophical and scientific inquiry, challenging the notion that our perceptions directly and accurately represent reality. The limitations of naive realism. Naive realism, like any philosophical position, has its limitations and has been subject to criticism. Some of the key limitations of naive realism include: 1. Perceptual illusions. Naive realism assumes that our senses provide us with accurate and unmediated access to reality. However, perceptual illusions demonstrate that our senses can be deceived or misinterpreted. Illusions like the Muller-Lyer illusion, where two lines with arrow-like markings appear to be different lengths despite being the same. The tactile rubber hand illusion, where a rubber hand is stroked in synchrony with a person's hidden hand, the person may perceive the rubber hand as their own. Or the thermal grill illusion, when alternating warm and cold stimuli are applied together, the brain can interpret the cold stimuli as painful heat. These experiments illustrate that our perception can be influenced by various factors, including cognitive biases, context, and prior expectations. 2. Subjective experience. Naive realism does not account for the subjective nature of perception. While naive realism assumes that our perceptions are objective representations of reality, research in cognitive science and neuroscience suggests that our perceptions are influenced by our cognitive processes, biases, and subjective interpretations. For example, different individuals may perceive the same object or event differently based on their unique perspectives and prior experiences. 3. Limited access to reality. Naive realism assumes that our senses provide us with direct and complete access to reality. However, there are aspects of reality that are beyond the reach of our senses. For instance, we cannot directly perceive phenomena such as microscopic particles, electromagnetic fields, or ultraviolet light. Our sensory systems have limitations in terms of the range of stimuli they can detect, and this restricts our direct access to the complete reality. 4. Dependence on interpretation. Naive realism overlooks the fact that our perceptions are not solely determined by sensory input but also involve cognitive interpretation. Our brains actively construct our perceptual experiences by integrating sensory information with prior knowledge, expectations, and cognitive processes. This means that our perceptions are influenced by subjective interpretation, and they can be shaped by factors such as cultural conditioning, beliefs, and individual differences. 5. Theoretical challenges. Naive realism faces theoretical challenges from alternative philosophical positions, such as representationalism and indirect realism. These alternative perspectives argue that our perceptions are mediated by mental representations or that we have access to a subjective representation of reality, rather than direct and unmediated access. These challenges highlight the complexities of perception and question the validity of naive realism's assumption of immediate and accurate perception. It is important to consider these limitations and engage in critical thinking when examining our perceptual experiences and our understanding of reality. While naive realism provides an intuitive and straightforward explanation of perception, it is not without its shortcomings. Exploring alternative perspectives and engaging in empirical research can help us develop a more nuanced and comprehensive understanding of how we perceive and relate to the world. To transcend the limitations of naive realism and seek the truth, we can adopt alternative approaches. Cultivating open-mindedness. Actively seek out diverse viewpoints, engage in respectful discussions with others who hold different beliefs, and genuinely consider alternative perspectives. This helps broaden our understanding and reduces the influence of confirmation bias. Critical self-reflection. Regularly question our own beliefs and biases. Explore the reasons behind our opinions and challenge ourselves to consider alternative interpretations. This self-reflection can help us break free from the confines of naive realism and foster intellectual growth. Emotional awareness. Develop the ability to recognize and regulate our emotions. By becoming more aware of our emotional responses, we can pause, reflect, and respond more thoughtfully, considering alternative viewpoints and seeking common ground. Empathy and compassion. Cultivate empathy by putting ourselves in others' shoes and striving to understand their experiences and perspectives. This helps foster compassion and reduces the tendency to impose our own reality onto others. Breaking free from the limitations of naive realism requires conscious effort and a willingness to explore beyond our comfort zones. By cultivating open-mindedness, emotional awareness, empathy, continuous learning, mindfulness, and self-reflection, we can begin to see beyond the constraints of naive realism and embrace a more comprehensive understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Remember, truth is a multifaceted and ever-evolving concept. By stepping beyond the illusions created by naive realism, we open ourselves to a more profound exploration of the world and the truths that lie beyond. Join us in our next episode as we guide you through a journey of self-reflection to transcend the limitations of naive realism. Thank you for joining us on Wisdom of Freedom. If you are still here, we sincerely appreciate your support and patience. If you find the episode helpful, please like and subscribe to the channel and share the episodes with anyone you think may benefit from it. Until next time, be curious, open and free.